in working with the mayor and deputy mayor to provide as much comprehensive information in one Zoom meeting as possible. We wanted to have you here so we could walk around the site and interact with folks, but based on the situation that we're in with COVID-19, this is the best that we could do. So without any further ado, let me turn it over to the leader of our city, someone who gets things done. If the mayor focuses on something, it moves, and we are focused on the Trop. So let me turn it over to Mayor Kreisman.
Thank you, Alan, and good morning, everyone. I want to thank you all for your interest in St. Petersburg, and in particular, what we currently call the Tropicana Field site. Let me first also thank my city development team led by Alan Delisle for the entire team's hard work on this issue, and I'm going to thank them in advance for the time and energy that I know that they're going to dedicate to this site and working with a future developer. So if you've been around for a while and you work with cities across the nation or the globe, you know how city officials love to say that their city is different from other cities, and usually they're not. But I will tell you right out of the gate, St. Pete, in fact, is different than other cities. We are really unique. We are one of Florida's 5 biggest cities. We are growing every day, but we are very much a community, which is, I think, one of the things that makes us special and different than so many other places. Is we're the 5th largest city, and yet we have that community feel, and citizen engagement in this city really is kind of off the charts, and especially as it relates to this very important piece of land. It is one of the things that makes St. Pete truly unique and special, but it can also prove to be a challenge because there are really many stakeholders here that need to be considered. But what we know is this site is well worth it. We don't really believe there is any other urban site quite like this anywhere else in the country. And we are so excited to partner with our experts, with development experts, and to realize our vision for this site. So if you know me, or maybe you have read about me, the one thing that I wish we could do is redevelop this site tomorrow. But we know that this is a long-term endeavor. And so my goal over the course of the next 16 months that I have remaining as mayor is really to lay the foundation for success, for everyone's success. And success, first and foremost, equates to opportunity for the city, for our residents, for the developer, maybe even for the Tampa Bay Rays if that's what they decide. So before I turn it over to our deputy mayor and city administrator, I just want to remark about the particular moment, about this particular moment in St. Pete, how we got here, and really where we're going. So first, the renaissance of this city really began in the early 1990s when the Vinoy Hotel on our waterfront was restored. The Tropicana Field site, first known as the Suncoast Dome and then the Thunderdome, was yet to truly be activated as baseball didn't really begin here until 1998. Our reputation as a city of the arts really began to cement itself in the late 1990s as the Florida International Museum built upon the success of the Dali Museum. Our modern downtown began to take shape in the 2000s as additional residential towers were constructed along the waterfront. And this renaissance was followed by the recession that every other city across America experienced. But St. Pete emerged from the recession quickly, and we really turned our rocket boosters on. We kept our foot on the gas pedal. And as a result, the growth, I think, has been remarkable. We've gotten a lot done, especially in the area that surrounds Tropicana Field. The Edge District, as it is known, which is home to a brand new state-of-the-art police station north of the Trop site, has really become the place to be in St. Pete. I think it's the hottest area right now in the city. On the southern side of the Trop site is the Campbell Park neighborhood, which is home to a brand new regional skate park. We all know about the hub of activity east of the Trop site, obviously in our downtown as you head toward the new St. Pete Pier. And west of the site is the home to a burgeoning warehouse arts district and the diverse Grand Central District and so much more. So we believe the future is even brighter. As we come of age, we are also making sure that we are building our city to be resilient, smart, and to be a dynamic city. And this site must reflect that, and it must complement our efforts. So for all of you on this meeting, we thank you for your time and your interest. And I'm now going to turn it over to my deputy mayor, who will share with you a bit about how we operate our city each day, how our values inform the vision that I've spoken. Deputy Mayor, the Zoom is now yours.
Thank you, Mayor Kreisman. Thank you so much. Good morning. I am Dr. Kanika Tomlin, Deputy Mayor and City Administrator of the beautiful city of St. Petersburg, Florida. We are so glad that you're here. Welcome. I say that intentionally to not only welcome you to this morning's meeting, but to welcome you to our city, because we know that if you're beginning to think about St. Pete, and if you've been fortunate enough to experience her magic, then you're already thinking about how you can be a part of it. And we are so excited for your interest. Mayor Kreisman did a great job, a really wonderful job, as he always does, telling you all about our city and the many ways that we are special. There are so many, and you'll hear much about so many of those today. I want to spend a few minutes talking to you about why. What makes St. Pete special? St. Pete's people make our city special. About 270,000 of us who love this city. I was born and raised here, and I'm so pleased and proud to serve it, and everyone who calls this city home is bound together with an immeasurable pride for the great things that happen here every day. And we're all working very hard to purposefully propel our city toward its brightest future. In City Hall, we are committed to putting our people at the center of all of our work. Every strategy, every plan, every project begins and ends with our people in mind. We are united in St. Pete by a common vision. And that vision is that St. Pete will be a city of opportunity where the sun shines on all who come to live, work, and play. We work hard every day to be an innovative, creative, and competitive community that honors our past as we pursue our future. And the Tropicana Field site sits squarely at the center of that vision. The reimagined, redeveloped site is symbolic of our community's aspirations. It's steeped in a rich history filled with great memories and a past that includes many lessons from which we are committed to learn. It's teeming with opportunity for innovative ingenuity and creativity that further transforms our culture and our commerce. It will serve as a flagship for our ongoing efforts for equity, about which we are unflinching. And there's no doubt that what happens on the Tropicana Field site will generate generational opportunities. This is a special time in St. Pete. We're coming into our own, and our next chapter promises to be our best. St. Pete is a city of neighborhoods whose individuality collectively shines. From our new internationally noted pier to our timeless world-class park systems, from our beautiful shoreline to our climbing skyline, and our creative class and culture that makes everyone who comes here a collector of experiences they'll never forget. In all of these and so many other ways, St. Pete is truly stunning. And we put our people first. So we believe that will only make us a better, stronger, more resilient city as time goes on. St. Pete's story is exciting, and our next chapter is the margin of excellence in which our brightest future waits to rise. Ours is truly a city of opportunity where the sun shines on all, and there's room for every dream, for every effort, for every opportunity, including yours. and your impressive visions for all the Tropicana Field site can and will become. We're so excited about the possibilities for partnership. We can't wait to hear more. We welcome your enthusiasm, and we're excited to tell you more about what makes St. Pete shine. So thanks for your interest. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you to our subject matter experts who so wonderfully tell our story. We're so glad you're here. Alan?
Deputy Mayor, thank you very much. Mayor, thank you very much. So you see why St. Petersburg is on the move and has been on the move for several years. Now, it's impossible to follow the mayor and deputy mayor, and I've learned that lesson a long time ago. So I'm going to ask Brian to pull up the video. We're going to show you a brief video, and then we'll get into the different special interest information that you need to know. Brian? Thank you, Brian. I think we'll pull up the PowerPoint and move forward with the presentation. My name, by the way, is Alan Delisle. I am the City Development Administrator, and I work with 5 different departments that work with me. And one of the things that I enjoy about the structure of St. Petersburg that's relevant to this presentation or to this information session is that all the development elements, or most of the development elements, are coordinated within my administration to try to make development smoother for the private sector, and to make sure that all the systems are working together. And that includes public-private partnerships. The next slide, Brian. So I'll just spend a few minutes just to kind of set up the rest of the day. What we want to do is provide very concise information to you in the shortest period of time possible. We've allocated 3 hours for this event. We want to talk about the city of St. Petersburg. We want to talk about the region, because this is a regional project. It's going to have a regional impact, and it's going to have a regional economic development purpose. And then we want to talk about the site. We want you to be as informed as possible on the site, so that when you do submit your proposals, you've got as much information early on as possible. Next. Let me just talk a little bit about the structure for today. Obviously, we've just heard from the mayor and the deputy mayor to kind of set the tone. We've seen a short video. We are honored to have our economic development partners in the first element of this presentation. For about an hour, we're going to ask folks from outside of the city that we work with every day, we partner with every day on economic development outcomes. And we want them to tell you a little bit about who they are, what they do, and why they do it. Because we want you to be able to put a name to a face so that if you want to follow up and get some additional information, you can. Then the next hour after that is going to be spent with our city leaders, our development, not development, but our other administrators, our other directors in the city that are experts in their areas and have been working extremely hard to move their agenda forward on behalf of the city. And we want you to hear from them directly and for you to be able to gain information from them, critical information. And then the last hour will be questions and answers. We'll be leaving time so that you can ask questions and we can answer them as best we can. And having said that, let me turn to Brian to talk about how that question and answer period will work.
Thank you, Alan. We're asking everyone email questions to business@stpete.org. You can do that at any point throughout the meeting today. We will be reading those and sending them, forwarding them to the city leader or partner that's kind of the expert in the field to help us answer that question so they're prepared. When we get to the question and answer section, I will read the question and then defer to that expert to help handle it. But at any point throughout this presentation, again, please just email business@stpete.org with your questions, and we'll be happy to answer them when we get to that portion. Back to you, Alan.
Thanks, Brian. Next slide. Just want to talk a little bit about the process today. I've mentioned a little bit about this, but the key for us, you have the RFP. We've spent 5 years putting that RFP together. It's chock full of information. We've got all kinds of studies, all kinds of information, all kinds of data points to help you frame your proposals back to us. But we also want to make sure that we give you a flavor for our personality, which the mayor and deputy mayor just did. In short, there is nothing like St. Petersburg in Florida, and nothing really like it in the rest of the country. And downtown is one of the most vibrant downtowns, walkable downtowns in the country. I've worked in 3 other places and I've never seen anything quite like this. We want to make sure that you see some of our leadership and put names to faces. We work very hard to be transparent. So we will provide the same information to everybody. Any questions that are asked, we will post on our website. And so everybody has access to the same information. And then the purpose of this, in the end, we are looking for a partner, a true partner. We're looking for a developer that thinks like us, works with us, with our values, with our principles, and we work together on a tremendous outcome. Next slide. Just want to hit on a few interesting topics here, themes that are important to us as a community. Our economic fundamentals, we watch very closely. We have a State of the Economy address every year. We look at 43 different matrix to see how we're doing. Are the indicators moving in the right direction or the wrong direction? 41 out of 43 of those indicators last year moved in the right direction. That is included as a link in the RFP. Please spend some time looking at that because there are some unique factors related to the city of St. Petersburg that do not necessarily relate to the region. So it's important for you to understand those subtleties. We have one of the highest youth population growth factors in the state and in the country. This is the place to be for young people. And that's been a trend that you have to make sure that you see recently. And that has to be separated from the region in some cases. We've also increased our wage earnings tremendously. And some other folks are going to get into some of these other indicators, but all of them are moving almost all of them are moving in the right direction. Very proud of that. The preparation, I just wanted to spend a minute on how the mayor and deputy mayor are very serious about making sure that whatever we touch, we do with a high quality, and we work with our partners on that. So we have spent an enormous amount of time putting together relevant information to make this project the best project it can be. And again, all of that is contained in the RFP. We've studied it from almost every perspective possible. Regulatory excellence. This is important. We have spent an enormous amount of time working quietly behind the scenes, making sure that our regulatory process, our zoning process, our zoning appeals process, our permitting process is as efficient as possible. And we work really hard to do that. And one thing that you'll see in the state of the economy is our construction values have set records over the last several years, and the amount of permits that we issue have set records as well. This next item, location, is something that I think you know, and you'll quickly assess that this is one of the best locations in the country. It couldn't be better positioned for the type of project that we're looking for. Right off the highways, right next to a vibrant downtown, right next to our Bay Area and our new pier. And if you have any doubts about kind of the work that the city can do related to economic development, take a look at the pier project that was developed by the city, and we're very proud of it. The next item is really critical. I touched on it a little bit. But we really value public-private partnerships. We know that it's difficult for cities to do it on their own. The pier is an example of that. Even though we developed it, we did partnerships with several private sector operators to make it special. And we're going to do the same thing here with the Trop. Now, the developer will have a much more active play in the Trop. Because of what we need from that expertise to develop the site, that's got to be with a private developer. But we understand how to put public-private partnerships together, and we've probably put more public-private partnerships together than any other city in the country in the last several years. Next slide. The economic development infrastructure, and you're going to get a sense of this soon when I turn it over to Chris Steinacher, our president and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce here. We just have an incredible infrastructure in place of leadership outside of the city that work with the private sector. And we value that. And the mayor and deputy mayor have put that infrastructure in place over the last 5 years. Even more so than when they first came in. The history of the site is extremely important. We're going to spend a lot of time on the history. There used to be a vibrant African-American community located on that site. That community, unfortunately, was dismantled for what you see there now. It was a mistake, and we want to make sure that we do everything possible to make sure that we are making up for that mistake and incorporating that community and all the communities surrounding the Trop into the redevelopment plan. The guiding principles, I just wanted to touch on the fact that you can read that RFP a lot of different ways, and you can read all the information, and you should. But it comes down to the 21 guiding principles that we have identified in that RFP. Those principles are solid. Those principles have to be taken very seriously in any proposal that comes our way. We thrive on the small business community. The mayor mentioned arts and how important arts and culture is to us. I think you'll just look around, you'll see the small artist, you'll see the big museums, the Dali Museum and others, the History Museum. But if you kind of put it all together, that's what makes us unique. Is we're scrappy, we're grassroots, and we are authentic. And that leads to the last point that I want to make, and that is about leadership. I hope if you take anything away from today, you walk away saying, wow, that city's got some strong leadership. They know what they're doing, and they know where they're going. And we're proud of that. I mean, we get in a room, we discuss these issues, but we always end up with a direction, and then we partner with the private sector. So that is a perfect transition, in my opinion, to one of our top leaders in the city. Let me introduce Chris Steinacher to talk about the Chamber of Commerce and St. Petersburg from his perspective. Chris?
All right. Good morning, Alan. Thank you very much. And Deputy Mayor and Mayor, thank you all for teeing us up so wonderfully. And tear in my eye when I hear the St. Pete story, even though I've lived it. You can't believe it's happening, but it is. So I want to just welcome and thank those who are on the Zoom call with us today to be interested in our community. It's our home. You can see we have a great deal of passion about it. We call it the St. Pete way. I'll mention a little bit about that. But we say every conversation in St. Pete starts with or ends with, I love St. Pete. And Dr. Tomlin, I heard you mention it, so I'm going to say, okay, well, we're done with that part. So this is a good conversation. So let the fun begin. Our chamber has been blessed to be here in this community for 120 years. And it's filled with a history of caring for our community. You heard our deputy mayor talk about the people. I think that's really our magic to this. And in the short 34 years that I've been here, I came from Atlanta to be part of this community 34 years ago. I have seen that. And I have seen these hard conversations include everybody. But if you think back at just what we've done, this is a 30-year overnight success story. And it started with a great public-private partnerships. Then we were focused 30 plus years ago on, we had a mayor called the Tree Mayor, and he was working on making sure that we are environmentally beautiful. And then he started bringing in some of the arts as well. So we started to be this place to care about the environment around us and to be stimulated. And then we had a mayor come in and really start building the infrastructure in place, seeing the opportunity to put down some roots for all of us. And then we found a mayor who is focused on that entrepreneur and that cool, funky business, and St. Pete started to grow those. And then finally, we were blessed with this team that has been with us for over 6 years now, who really gets us. And the most important part, includes everybody, where the sun can shine on all of us in St. Pete. That's what the promise of St. Pete has become to us. So you're going to hear a story today of a public-private partnership. What you heard from this first lead off is we've got the best public team in the country. I really believe as our society and as our country really determines which direction we're heading, in our community, we already know, and we're 2 steps ahead. We've had these conversations for more than just the last 6 months, but the last 6 years. And so you're going to see everybody talk about something called Grow Smarter. And Grow Smarter to us is a platform, is a strategy, but it's more about a culture that we're trying to build that we ask you to be part of. And in fact, we're going to demand it, and we'll follow you around until you become part of it. But when we talk about that Grow Smarter, it's about how do we get everybody on the same page so that everybody can celebrate the success. Working in economic development, it's easy to celebrate a success of a new business coming into your area, and you give them incentives and they bring down jobs, and there's people with shovels, and it's exciting. But then you look around and you see a business that's been there for 50 years and wonder if we gave those same time and attention to that business, wouldn't it grow at that same pace and rate? And wouldn't we feel just as good? So our community is focused on all those things. So you're going to hear people talk about galleries and museums, but mostly we're going to talk about the artists. And you're going to hear people talk about housing, affordable and workforce, but we're going to talk about neighborhoods. Because in St. Pete, we say we're not a subdivision, we're a neighborhood, and we care about that. And what you're building for us, what we call the hole in our soul, this notion that we can take 86 acres to what we believe is one of the most beautiful places ever, and now one of those places who really understands what it takes to have courageous conversations. We believe this 86 acres is going to be transformational, not just for St. Pete or Tampa Bay or for Florida, but for the world. We're going to build a showcase. We're building that postcard, and we're asking for your help. So who's following me are those partners that we come together under Grow Smarter and in a lot of other ways to ensure we're supporting each other's successes. You can't have a vibrant downtown if you don't have a vibrant beach. You can't bring businesses here to attract them to your workforce if you don't have great schools. And you can't have a wonderful neighborhood if you don't have safety. All those are economic development issues. That's why we call it Grow Smarter. It's not just about the job or the building you're going to promise us. It's how they're all connected. And I'm going to share the screen now with those partners who are doing the work to make sure we're all connected. And you're going to hear some amazing successes. They're believable, they're real, and they're additive. We're not done yet. We believe we're just getting started and won't you join us. Thank you, Alan.
Chris, thank you very much. Great segue to JP. JP runs our Economic Development Corporation, which is not part of the city. It is a group of private leaders, as he'll explain, with the mayor on the board as well. And so we collaborate, but JP is our business development outreach arm, and constantly looking to attract more businesses to our city. So whoever the developer is going to be on this is going to be closely aligned with JP. JP?
Thanks, Alan. Again, my name is JP Dubuque. I'm pleased to be the president and CEO of the St. Pete Area Economic Development Corporation. And we're pleased to partner with the city and our other economic development partners. I'm really looking forward to partnering with whoever is chosen to be the master developer for this redevelopment opportunity. And we know that there will be some office and commercial space in there, and we want to work to help you recruit good businesses that enhance our culture and community and create good jobs for our community. As Alan mentioned, we were created from the Grow Smarter strategy. We were created about 3.5 years ago as a private-public organization with the city as our public partner. And we have 65 other private entities that invest in our organization in our effort to help enhance our economy, enhance our prosperity for everybody by working with companies to help them add jobs in our community, add good jobs in our community. Our Grow Smarter focus is on our 5 targeted industries. Those targeted industries are specialized manufacturing, financial services, life and marine science, creative art and design, and data analytics. And our organization has 2 main focuses. And we really try to keep our scope narrow and focus on the things that we're good at and do these as well as we can. The first area is that we market St. Pete as a great place to grow a business, to have a successful business, and to find your dream job. We also work with both new and existing businesses that are looking to add jobs in the community to mitigate the challenges to that growth by acting as a concierge, connecting them with people and programs that can help them ensure their success. We also act as a catalyst to bring light to other things that really impact our targeted industries and will be able to help them grow their business. We're set up to be extremely proactive. We have an ongoing digital campaign and outreach program that is consistent, active, and organized. We have an in-house sales development representative that is spending her time prospecting for new companies and trying to engage them in conversations about St. Petersburg. And of course, I get the pleasure of traveling around the globe with the mayor sometimes and with other private sector partners on occasion to tell the story of St. Pete one-on-one to business leaders and centers of influence. As Alan mentioned, we're a business development. Our primary role is in business recruitment, and we have recruited quite a number of U.S. headquarters, of global headquarters, of regional headquarter companies, and our pipeline is extremely full even today with the COVID pandemic, and we're very pleased of that because people want to be in St. Pete. The office market is not slowing down as far as I can see, and we think that that's going to continue. There are other organizations that I think we should note that the EDC did not have a huge role in, but the city did, and that is the expansion and recommitment from some of our major employers like Jabil and Raymond James, and also companies like L3 that are moving in. So that brings a lot of credibility to what we have going on here in St. Pete. We talked a lot about, everybody that has spoken today has talked a lot about our culture here. And man, I get so excited when I can recruit a company that gets our culture and that their corporate culture matches our community culture. It is a huge win for everybody, and I really look forward to helping whoever is selected as the master developer in making sure that continues, because that way we keep what we've got. We keep that feel. As my friend Chris Steinacher says, St. Pete has a funk, and we want to keep that funk. We want to keep that vibrancy. We want to keep a sense of community and not turn this place into something that it shouldn't be. So I really look forward to working with the master developer. One of the big things that we have already started is we have seated a committee within the Economic Development Corporation of private sector partners, and we're beginning to kick off a marketing campaign that talks about the Trop opportunity. And that marketing campaign is focused not at developers and developer partners like those of you on this call today, but is focused at end users. And we're trying to generate some interest in that opportunity. And we know it's a long time from today to when we're going to have buildings available. But we think it's never too early to start generating a lot of buzz about what's going on in our community. And we look forward to that. I encourage you to check out our website at www.stpeteedc.com, and please reach out to me if I can be of any assistance to you. Thanks so much. Back to you, Alan.
Hey, JP, before I leave you, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but could you maybe spend a minute just talking about the Dynasty project and kind of what you did there and what that meant to the city?
Sure, thanks. I'm happy to do that. So Dynasty Financial is one of the fastest growing wealth management companies in the country. I think they're number 4 right now. And they were in Manhattan, they were headquartered in Manhattan, and they were looking for a new operation because they realized that they really didn't need to be on Wall Street or in the Midtown Manhattan where their headquarters is to do what they were doing. They wanted to look for some leverage from a financial standpoint and not lose anything for their business operations, not to lose anything on talent, not to lose anything on community feel and access and all that type of thing. So they looked at about 15 different cities. Originally, St. Pete was not on the list. And they came to the region, looked at one of our other cities in the region, and didn't see what they liked. Came over to St. Pete kind of on a last minute kind of whim and fell in love with it. And we got the opportunity to engage with them and really dig deep and show them how St. Pete would match with them and how they would match with St. Pete. We spent several hours with them, several trips with them. We engaged with the Tampa Bay Rays, who were big in helping us recruit this company. We engaged with the mayor, who was incredibly important in getting this company to move here. Alan, of course, was right at the table with everything. We were hand in hand, arm in arm on that recruitment process. And then once they made the decision that they were going to do it and move their headquarters here, we didn't stop working with them. We worked with them to help plan and execute tours for their employees in New York to come down and see St. Pete. because that was one of the big things. They didn't want to lose their employees, their key employees. So we helped them plan 3 different tours, showed their employees all the same love that we showed their executives. And as it turns out, they're about 50 or 60 employees now in St. Pete, are continuing to hire through this pandemic, continuing to grow. And I don't think it'll be too long before there'll be north of 100 employees in our community. The other thing is, when I talk about that culture match, the Dynasty leadership team did not want to come in and take from our community. They wanted to be a part of our community, even though not many of their clientele is here. And they have done community projects. They've invested and partnered with many of our nonprofits. They've joined my effort, and their CEO has gone back to New York City with me to help tell the story of why they moved. And he sat down shoulder to shoulder with Tosh Elwin from Raymond James. So you had 2 of the fastest growing wealth management companies and competitors sitting shoulder to shoulder in New York City, telling the world why St. Pete is a place that they want to call home. So it was a great win for our community all around, great jobs, great investment in the community, and great community partner. So it's one of our biggest wins. And thank you to everybody in the community to help make that happen. And thank you to Dynasty for making the right decision.
JP, thank you very much. Let me turn it over to another dynamic leader, Jason Mathis. This site is in downtown. It is our downtown. We always it was focused more to the east of this site, but the downtown is growing and moving to the west. No question about it. The mayor mentioned the Edge District, and the architect, the individual that is making sure that downtown continues to have the special feel that it always has, or that has been developed over the years, is Jason Mathis. So Jason, let me ask you to say a few words about your organization.
Awesome. Thanks, Alan. I appreciate it. And as you know, you and I both moved to this community and really have grown to love it. And, are building on this foundation that has been laid for so many years on this really incredible, dynamic, vibrant community. I'm excited to spend a couple minutes with you this morning talking about downtown St. Pete. Everybody thinks that they've got the best dog in the world. And I guess everybody is right to a certain extent. If you love your dog, fine, you can have that. Your dog can be the best dog in the world to you. Some people think that they live in the best city in the world, but I would say that unless you live in St. Pete, Florida, St. Petersburg, you're wrong. This really is a special place. This really is, for me, the best city in the world. As Alan said, my name is Jason Mathis. I'm the CEO of the St. Petersburg Downtown Partnership. We are a private, nonprofit organization that advocates for smart growth in our urban center. And I've thought a lot about how to spend the next few minutes with you, really to help your proposal succeed as you're putting these RFPs together. I wanted to share 3 specific things about downtown St. Petersburg that I hope will make your response better. Number 1, physical space. Our downtown was intentionally designed to be walkable with small blocks, purposeful green space, and access to water built right into the bones of our original plan. Much like many other cities, the city's skyline ascends to crest at the water's edge. And downtown high-rises are primarily residential buildings with very limited commercial space. That housing density means that downtown is lively at night with bars and restaurants and a dynamic vibe that belies our city's relatively small size. Downtown St. Pete may not be the biggest urban center in the Tampa Bay region, but it is definitely the most fun. Your project will benefit from a strong urban aesthetic and a commitment to local bars, restaurants, and retail. Nestled up against Tampa Bay, we benefit from ocean breezes, an island climate, and an incredible waterfront park system. As a peninsula on a peninsula, water, whether that's lakes or creeks or the ocean, is a constant presence. So this is the point I want to make. This is important. Extending the walkability, incorporating water and green space into your design through Booker Creek will maintain a sense of continuity with the rest of downtown. The second point I wanted to make is that downtown is accessible. We're about half an hour from the international airport and 15 minutes from some of the best beaches in America. You may hear that as a region, we haven't always done a great job of investing in public transit, and that is accurate. But we are very well served by a free trolley system in the urban core that's run by our organization. And I will commit to you today that as this redevelopment project matures, we will work to extend service on this free trolley system to the Tropicana Field development, Warehouse Arts District, and Deuces neighborhood. As this new neighborhood emerges, it will be critical to link to it to other parts of the city. The surface parking lot and aging ballpark that define the site right now are smack dab in the middle of some of the most vibrant neighborhoods in Florida, as Alan mentioned, like the Edge District, the Innovation District, you'll hear from Allison following me, and the rest of our downtown. And that makes your job actually easier. You don't have to build momentum or enthusiasm from scratch. So this is the important point I want to make here. Linking to adjacent neighborhoods and taking advantage of that proximity and accessibility will propel your development forward. The third point I wanted to make, and we've already talked about this a little bit, the culture of downtown and of St. Pete more generally. And I don't just mean the museums and legacy arts organizations or the visual arts with more than 500 urban murals in our downtown space. I mean the way that people treat each other. As you may know, I-95 starts at the Canadian border in Maine and runs all the way down the eastern seaboard through Boston, New York City, and Washington, D.C. to Miami. So Florida's East Coast has welcomed lots of transplants and appropriated cultural norms from the eastern seaboard. On the other hand, I-75 starts at the Canadian border in Michigan and runs through Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Georgia, and really first touches the ocean right about by St. Pete. So those Midwestern transplants and values of humility, graciousness, and authenticity have infiltrated our community. In a lot of ways, St. Pete really is a combination of Midwestern hospitality and Southern charm. And as a result, as you have already heard repeatedly, people love this place. I will say we're not perfect. This city has had a difficult history with race, and while I can acknowledge that history, as a white guy who only moved to St. Pete a couple of years ago, it's not my story to tell. But as it relates to your proposal, I'm going to beg you to take the time to understand the complicated history of this site and make sure your proposal respectfully honors the promises made to people of color who were displaced to build Tropicana Field. This is really important. This is the point I want to make here. I will tell you that this redevelopment can heal some very deep wounds, and I challenge you to make that legacy a priority in all of your thinking and planning. Tropicana Field is really an incredible opportunity. It promises to be one of the first major urban infill developments built for a post-COVID world. And I hope you'll see that everyone who is speaking here today wants to help you succeed. We are a team, public and private sector leaders united. And as a community, we are rooting for you. We want to help you build something incredible on this extraordinary foundation. In fact, we need you to create something unique and special and authentic, just like St. Pete. Alan, back to you.
Jason, thank you very much. Another great segue to Allison Barlow, who oversees our innovation district. Now, this is extremely important as well. Our innovation district is right adjacent to downtown, right adjacent to the Trop site. It has, as Allison will indicate, our higher education, our research, our hospitals, marine science, life science. That magic is coming together beautifully and creating new commercial opportunities. You know, I spent a fair amount of time in Durham, North Carolina, so I understand the power of a research park and what that did for that community for 40, 50 years and still going strong. So it's a very important element and magic to this project, and I'll turn it over to Allison to take it from there.
Thanks, Alan. Hi, everyone. I'm Allison Barlow, the Executive Director of the St. Petersburg Innovation District. Brian, if you don't mind, would you put up the slides for me? So as Alan mentioned, the Innovation District is right adjacent to the Tropicana site, and I feel like a picture explains it all. So you'll see the buildings in the foreground of this picture, and that is the Innovation District. We're separated from the site by the Interstate Artery 175. And we're excited about this opportunity, not only for the city of St. Petersburg, for also the innovation and the leaders in those areas in our community and the potential for growth. Alan, or Brian, will you go to the next slide? So a little bit about the Innovation District. The Innovation District is a public-private partnership. I work closely with the folks you've heard from already, Chris, JP, and also Jason. We were formed in April of 2016, and our mission is around economic growth, fostering job growth, economic development, but most importantly, learning and inspiration. We focus equally on growing jobs and incubating entrepreneurs as we do in growing research and patents and grant opportunities. We have about 7,500 employees, 60%, which are within the ages of 30 to 54. Now, most interesting is that more than 1 in 3 with a college degree hold a PhD. We have a huge number of PhDs in this community. We have over 230 federal grants and contracts and 22.6 million just in the Florida USF research R&D spending. That doesn't include the work by some of our other partners. We use a model from Brookings Institute that looks to bring together economic assets, these individuals and the organizations they belong to, physical assets, our space, as well as networking assets, looking for unique combinations and creativity to come together. Next slide. A little bit about who's involved in the Innovation District and whom you might want to consider as you can think about opportunities at the new Tropicana site. We have 40 plus organizations in the district who are actively involved. 60% of those have a footprint in the district, but most interesting, 40% do not. So there are opportunities for continued collaborations, as well as even involvement of existing members in expansion and growth in the district. As you heard from JP, we have 5 target industries in St. Pete as part of our Grow Smarter strategy. And in particular, with the Innovation District, we look at life science, marine science, our higher education, our technology and data analytics. You'll see a number of logos on here, and this is a sampling of who's involved. Everyone from Bayfront Health, who recently was acquired by Orlando Health, Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital, their pediatric clinical and research capabilities are here in St. Pete from Baltimore. Foundation for a Healthy St. Pete, which is a nonprofit we work closely with, focused on equity in our community. The University of South Florida, St. Petersburg. In particular, I want to highlight the university's College of Marine Science. It is the lead agent for many of our activities in marine science here, and we are the largest concentration of marine scientists in the Southeast US. We also, of course, have the Downtown Partnership, the EDC, and the Chamber, as well as the city involved. I want to highlight a couple of things you might want to think about and we're excited about. One is the potential when you look at the integration of ocean and human health. What happens in our oceans that leads to contaminants or issues in our families and our children and our growing community. We are looking at a lot of different topics in that area, both from a hope for future clinical applications, but also just an understanding of what we need to do in policy and activities in our waters. Another area you want to think about is that often we focus on, when I talk about science and technology, people will think about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. But as you've heard, we are deeply committed to arts in our community. And I would hypothesize with you that art and science are deeply intertwined. If you think about that sculpture that's on outside your window, or you think about the new Bending Arc by Janet Eckelman at the pier, those are beautiful works of art, but they require amazing engineering. We are committed to bringing to our young people an understanding that their passions, whether it be science or technology or art, can come together. And we look to organizations who are trying to break down those barriers and grow opportunities for young people, but also for our community. The last thing I'll highlight is our work in technology, and particularly smart city technology. Now, I know the Tropicana site is a perfect location to use some of the smart city technology that would make our community safer, but also be able to maximize opportunities at that site. Here in the Innovation District, we're testing a couple of different projects, a smart streetlight project, smart intersection project, and those are great examples of what is possible. I will also highlight that we, in combination with the Deuces Live District, are working on digital inclusion. So as good as our technology is, as much as we have some great opportunities here, we are leaving people behind. As we all have learned from COVID, there's need to make sure that everybody in the community has a way to be part of the digital economy. So this is where our community came together, stood up and said, we're going to solve this problem. And so we lead a digital inclusion working group made up of partners around the community. And we put that under our smart city portfolio. So as you can see, there's lots of opportunities, lots of touch points with the Tropicana site. These partners that you see on the slide are excited about this opportunity. And we look forward to a chance to talk to you, a chance to explore what's possible, how to expand what we're doing in the Innovation District into the Tropicana site. Brian, if you'll go to the next slide. So I have up here my contact info, and you can again see from the vantage point of this photo, the proximity of the Innovation District. In the foreground, that peninsula is our College of Marine Science. It's also FIO, which is the home of the research vessels for the state of Florida. And you actually see there's a large vessel in the middle there. The green hulled vessel, that's the Weatherbird, or excuse me, that's the Weatherbird, and behind it is the Hogarth. You can see then farther along the university, that brown covered building is Poynter Institute, which is the home of PolitiFact. And we have a deep passion for journalism and fact checking in journalism. And then as you look further closer to the Trop site, you'll see the Johns Hopkins All Children's location and Bayfront Hospital. So in closing, I'll just say we're excited. We really are passionate about making the Tropicana site a powerful opportunity for everyone in our community and an opportunity to explore what it looks like to bring art and technology and science together. Thanks.
Allison, thank you so much. And thank you for all the work that you've done to pull the Innovation District together with all that creativity and innovation. So let me mention that we had another person that I was just about to introduce, Gypsy Gallardo, who is a very solid professional. She oversees the One Community, which is a major force and economic development entity in South St. Pete. So as we talk about connecting to all the neighborhoods around the Trop, this is one that's very important. Gypsy could not make it. She just indicated that she has a family health issue that she has to attend to. So we lost her for today, and unfortunately, that is your loss. But we will make sure we're going to post both presentations, the presentation from September 1st and today's presentation. And she was on the September 1st presentation, so you'll be able to catch her there on our website. But having said that, let me dovetail into the next hour and look at that. It's just about 10 o'clock. Very rare, but we're trying to stay right on schedule. I want to introduce Nikki Capehart. Nikki oversees and runs the city's urban affairs department and is very active in working on economic development issues, but also very knowledgeable about this site and about its history. So Nikki, I want to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Alan. And Brian, I think you have, yes, thank you. So before I get into a little more specifics about the history of the site, I definitely want to also talk about just how proud I am to be a part of the culture of inclusion that our administration has ushered into the way we approach these public-private partnerships. And just hearing everyone on the call today is really good to be able to hear how all of this has come together, and that inclusion piece is such an important priority for so many of us in the work that we're doing, and how we have to maintain it as a part of the Tropicana Field development. You can go to the next slide, Brian. We want to make sure that we maintain and elevate that level of inclusion with this development. And as a result, we have had the opportunity to work with an outstanding new partnership through the Bloomberg Harvard initiative that allows us to be able to pull together even better a lot of the community collaborations that we started already as a part of the administration early on. There's some things that I want to highlight. You can go to the next slide, Brian. As a part of our urban affairs platform, we started out making sure that we really wanted to focus on 4 pillars. Catalyst for Commerce is one of them. And so much of the work that Alan mentioned that we do with the 2020 plan and the One Community plan has allowed us the opportunity to focus on being a catalyst for commerce. And that helps to honor the history of the site. As you can see in this photo, this was around 1970 in the neighborhood, which was before Tropicana Field, called the gas plant. And as you can see in the photo there, there's a reason for it being called the gas plant. But we now, through some of our partnerships, have had an opportunity to honor some of the legacy of those neighborhoods by working on projects like Inclusive St. Pete. It's a new MBE accelerator that we're working so diligently to try to help build the capacity of Black businesses in our community. The One Pier at the marketplace at the pier, making sure that we have an inclusive and diverse and welcoming pier downtown that also honors the history of so many of the Black businesses in our community. And connecting through cultural affairs for us has been really important also as a part of our urban affairs platform, because there's so much rich history and culture that is also connected to this site. And we are doing that through a lot of our connections to community organizations that are telling the story, the African American Heritage Association, even with the Woodson Museum, our murals. But we understand in St. Petersburg that this is a city of the arts, and arts is an economic engine for the entire city. So we work very diligently to make sure that that's a part of what we're doing in South St. Petersburg and the urban affairs platform. Also focus very closely on nurturing neighborhoods and families. As you can see, there was over 500 households and 9 churches that were relocated, 30 businesses. Brian, if you'll move to the next slide. As a part of our nurturing neighborhoods and families, we thought it very important to make sure that even in the work that we're doing now with our My Brothers and Sisters Keeper initiative, that it honors so much of the pride and the rich neighborhoods that were there at the Tropicana Field site before. And we want to continue to do that. And as a result, in our My Brothers and Sisters Keeper initiative, we have so many different opportunities: the Cohort of Champions program, the Not My Son program, our youth development grants, our Sisters Keeper initiative. All of these kind of help to mirror what was there before in the Tropicana Field site as it was with Gas Plant, where there was so much rich history and culture and ownership, if you will, in these Black neighborhoods that existed. And the last one that I really want to make sure that I cover as a part of what we're doing now is opportunity creation under one of our pillars. And that particularly makes sure that we are maintaining, if you will, a focus on economic growth in these neighborhoods that we're working on now, just as we were doing in honoring the Tropicana Field site and Gas Plant neighborhood. If you'll go to the next slide, Brian. In relation to opportunity creation, we have had a great opportunity to work with the 2020 One Community Plan, the Pinellas County Urban League, People Empowering and Restoring Communities, so many, St. Petersburg College, so many of our partners who helped us to get to the point of reducing poverty by 30% by the year 2020. We're very excited that we were able to exceed that pre-COVID and reach about a 45% reduced in poverty level. So this is very important for us because as we looked at moving forward with our Bloomberg Harvard City Leadership Initiative and Mayor Kreisman helping to pull together this outstanding group of city leaders some of them went to New York with us, and we worked on a very intense, if you will, strategy to make sure that we approached equity with Tropicana Field so that it would be in all aspects of how we look at redevelopment on the site. But that's something that is so important for us to honor with the community, a ongoing listening to how the community elders who have lived experience there felt about what was it once in the site. So much of that pride, if you will, of ownership and culture. We wanted to make sure that those lines of communication stayed open so that any developer that is selected understands how important it is to build with the community and not necessarily just for the community. So for us, that being able to achieve such a high level of reducing poverty by working so closely with our community partners will continue to be a part of what we're doing as we look at developing the Tropicana Field site and building again and fostering that trust and ownership around the site and what happens there so that we can all make sure that we don't make the mistakes of the past. And again, like I said, I'm very proud of the culture of inclusion that we've been able to usher in as a part of this administration, and hearing everyone come together and talk about it in this presentation today really does make, like JP said, the funk, if you will, of the city really stand out. So thank you, Alan.
Nikki, thank you. And Nikki, can I just ask maybe just one more minute on the one community plan and the elements of that? It was a unique plan. It talked about big ideas and how that can relate to the Trop.
Thank you for asking that. And one of the things that I definitely want to point out about it is it was a mindset shift going from the reducing poverty in 2020 to true community economic growth with one community. And so many other areas have started to take notice of the success that we've had in that mindset shift, especially in the communities and neighborhoods that are underserved. And for us, we're hearing from all different, not necessarily just in our region, but all different types of cities who want to mirror what we've been able to achieve in that type of a collaboration with our community leaders. So for us, the whole part of having all of those different pillars and focus, if you will, on how to achieve the community economic growth was really important. So, so many of the developments and programs that I mentioned, like Inclusive St. Pete, One Pier, even the Sankofa project. There are so many things that we were able to help pull together that will help to be kind of like JP was saying, getting those end users together that are available for all of the different economic opportunities that are available in our city. And the Tropicana Field, of course, being like the paramount one that we want to make sure we get right.
Great. Thank you, Nikki.
You're welcome.
Let me move over to Sophia Sorolis. And I think this is a nice transition because I just want to, in introducing Sophia, who is our economic and workforce director for the city, I want to underscore the fact that workforce was not always in our title. Economic development was about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. We included workforce because we knew that economic and workforce development are really one. And we have to maximize the workforce piece of that as much as the brick and mortar piece of that, getting back to the themes and principles that we have about people first. So let me turn it over to Sophia to talk about the city's economic and workforce agenda.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being on this call, and thank you for your interest in St. Petersburg. I just wanted to say at the outset, if everything you've heard today makes you think you want to do a project in St. Petersburg not involving Tropicana Field, please reach out to any of us. We'd be glad to provide you any information and help steer you in the right direction. Brian, could you go to the next slide, please? So as both Chris Steinacher from the Chamber and JP Dubuque from the EDC, who are my main partners, alluded to, in 2014, the city partnered with the Chamber to come up with several opportunities. The first one is going to be the Grow Smarter initiative. Could you go to the next slide, please? Brian? Can you hear me?
I do. It's showing me it's there. Hold on, let me reshare.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
no
It can
problem.
be a Zoom meeting without technology issues.
There you go. Thank you. And you've already heard what our 5 target sectors are. What I wanted to share with you is why we consider it to have been a successful endeavor and why it's important. From 2015 to 2019, the city has had an overall increase of employment of 11.5% within these Grow Smarter target industries. And as alluded to, we're talking about marine and life science, data analytics, specialized manufacturing, financial services, and creative art and design. The reason that's so important is the wages. The average food sector service wage is $21,232, while the average wage in the financial and insurance sector is 3 times that, $69,550. So the city is very interested in raising everybody's boat by providing access to higher wage employment. Brian, could you go to the next slide, please? Some of the specifics that the RFP requests information on is what I'm going to cover. The first is a small business enterprise program. The city has had a commitment to assist small business enterprises. The current program we have is race and gender neutral. However, right now we're in the midst of performing a disparity study, which we expect to be back in the next 2 or 3 months. And that may change the program in the future, depending on the study outcomes. But the current eligibility criteria for small business enterprises are they're independently owned and operated and controlled. They're not dominant in field of operation. They have a commercially useful function. They've been in operation for a year, and they're defined as a small business. In other words, 50 or fewer full-time employees, an average sales volume of $5 million or less for goods or services, or $8 million for construction. And they must be domiciled in our adjacent counties, or Pinellas County, Hillsborough, Pasco, Manatee, Polk counties, and a post office box is not acceptable. The reason I'm highlighting it is this is one of the criteria that you'll need to be responsive to within the RFP. Next slide, please. Significant participation of small business enterprise companies in the overall development and construction of the project consistent with the city's SBE program. The RFP says that the city expects to see how this issue will be implemented in the proposal, including an estimated percentage of the expected SBE participation. Next slide, please. Community Benefit Agreement Program. The RFP cites that's expected that development will provide community benefits consistent with our city's community benefit program, which is right now currently under development by the city in conjunction with our community. The community benefit program is going to address a number of things, including goals for employment, living wages, participation of small business, workforce training opportunities, affordable housing, childcare opportunities, transportation and mobility improvements, and sustainability initiatives and other needs important to the city and important to continuous improvement of the South St. Pete community redevelopment area. Next slide, please. A word about incentives. One of the biggest incentives that you need to know is Florida has no personal income tax. So any employees moving to the area, if you move to the area and you're coming from a state that has personal income tax, you'll roughly receive, a 10% raise because Florida does not have any personal income tax. Also, relatively speaking, Florida has a very low corporate income tax rate. Other incentives associated with the site include that the entire site, as offered within the RFP, is within a federally designated opportunity zone. Workforce development. The city has worked hard, as Alan alluded to, in the last 3 years to put together a coalition of groups that work to provide training, wraparound services for employees, especially within the South St. Pete CRA. So the city has engaged workforce providers that can assist in the selected developer to access qualified candidates for both construction and permanent employment opportunities. And this will include things like transportation, wraparound services, childcare, education. So we're ready to assist the selected developer in locating the qualified employees that they need to carry out this project. And then additionally, in job creation, the city has established its own job creation program, which rewards companies that hire people in the Grow Smarter target industries at higher wages with a stipend that's paid after the employee has been on the job for 1 year. Next slide, please. The in-town tax increment financing funds. What is stated is that not less than $75 million in-town TIF funds will be made available for the infrastructure site needs on the site. Improvements can include brownfield mitigation and remediation to enable redevelopment, public open space amenities on the site, including improvements that support the reactivation of Brooker Creek. And you've heard how important that is to many people on the call. Streetscape improvements that provide public rights of way, like alleys, sidewalks, pedestrian facilities, and streets that assist in reestablishing the grid. Transit infrastructure improvements, and parking. I think that's it for me. I just wanted to emphasize, if you have specific questions, just to email them again to business@stpete.org. And thank you very much.
Sophia, thank you for that thorough presentation. And let me just mention that we are receiving some questions, which is great. Thank you very much. At approximately 11 o'clock, we will get into the question session. So I just wanted those that have asked those questions to know that we will be getting to those questions soon. And I wanted to underscore one other thing that Sophia said. All of it was extremely important, but I just want to make sure that everybody on this call recognizes that the city, working with the county, has set aside $75 million. That's right, $75 million that can be used for infrastructure improvements on the site. So it goes to the concept of us understanding this is a public-private partnership and that we will do our part. So as you plan your proposal, obviously you'll include that investment along with the developer's investment. So having said that, now let's catch your breath and take a nice stretch. We're gonna go into a different phase, but very important phase of passing along information. We're going to talk about transportation, public works, environmental issues, and housing. And to start us off with that is our transportation and parking director, Evan Morey. Evan?
Thank you, Alan. Good morning, everybody. Like Alan said, Evan Moore, Director of Transportation and Parking, and I'll walk you through the next several slides. Next slide, please. So from the 21 guiding principles listed in the RFP, these are the primary ones that relate to transportation. And please note the emphasis on connectivity to the neighborhoods, the region, South St. Pete, as well as the importance of complete street strategies. Next slide. In this graphic, you'll see the orientation of the neighborhood surrounding the site and how the grid-oriented street network, trails, and interstate system all form efficient connections to the site. The future site should include reconnecting much of the grid network that was interrupted with the prior development. And transportation themes should be linked with other important city initiatives, including affordable and sustainable mobility options. Next slide. As Jason touched on earlier, St. Petersburg is very functional and desirable from a walkability perspective, particularly in the downtown neighborhood. Here's just some of the scores and accolades the Trop site neighborhood has received from trusted publications, and we will want to build on this success in the redevelopment of the Trop site. Walkability makes people want to visit a place, live in or near a place, work in a place, and it's just critically important to success for this project. Next slide. The way we believe walkability and all mobility can be integrated into the site is through utilizing complete streets principles. As many cities and states have done across the country, we formalized our commitment to complete streets through an administrative policy and complete streets implementation plan to guide all transportation-related decisions, and feel that a successful development partner will recognize the importance of these principles as it works with the city to redevelop the Trop site. Next slide. Here's a few of the strategic approaches we feel are important to making the Trop site development successful from a complete streets perspective. Next slide. And here you can see how the Pinellas Trail enters the site from the west, the red line, continues through and along the site, and connects to the downtown waterfront trail. We're working on plans to connect to the north via the CSX rail line, and believe there's an excellent opportunity for trail-oriented development at the Trop site. And as you can see, it connects south from the Trop site as well. So by trail, you can go in every direction from the Trop site. Next slide. We have 2 micromobility programs in St. Petersburg, including an established bike share program and a soon-to-start scooter share program, which you should integrate into the site through providing effective parking for these mobility options. Next slide. So on a local street level, we want cars to slow down a little bit. It's what Complete Streets is about, to make the streets safer for all modes, all ages, and people of all abilities, so people can get around comfortably and safely. And the street grid network allows for those slower speeds, yet is nearly devoid of congestion and is extremely efficient. On the other hand, for regional connectivity, particularly on interstate, we believe that relatively fast speeds and reliable travel times are very necessary for the purpose of moving a large number of people between regional destinations, including downtown St. Pete, the Gateway area, West Shore, Tampa International Airport, downtown Tampa, and also Manatee and Sarasota counties to the south. In working with the FDOT, there's over $1 billion slated for investment just in Pinellas County in the next 5 to 7 years to modernize the interstate system, make it more efficient, and get people between these destinations in a quick manner and allow for future growth. Next slide. The Cross Bay Ferry is something we're very proud of. We're entering our 4th season starting in November. And this is just another way for people to get around between downtown St. Pete and downtown Tampa. We use cutting across the bay as a way to shorten the travel time or distance and make for a reliable travel time. Next slide. We have the first in the region bus rapid transit program coming to St. Petersburg. We received a few months ago $23 million in federal funding to go along with the state and local funding to make this project a reality. And it will be up and operating in less than 2 years, and it will connect the Trop site, as you can see on the next slide, two points, both east and west. There's several stops around the Trop site, and it'll connect to the waterfront, the Innovation District, West St. Pete, and the Gulf Beaches. Next slide. The last topic is the downtown mobility study. This is underway right now. We're about halfway through it, and it will really inform transportation decisions for the next decade for the downtown area, and very importantly, the Trop site. What will reconnecting the grid do for transportation around there? What kind of options might we have to reconfigure or change the interstate feeders while also providing excellent access to the site and downtown? So we're about halfway finished with this and look forward to the progression of this study over the next year or so. And we feel like the results of the study will really help inform the Trop site redevelopment. And with that, I will turn it back to you, Alan. Thank you.
Evan, thank you very much for all your leadership and all the improvements that you have helped bring to the city in terms of complete streets and how the Trop site becomes kind of the culmination of all this work. Let me now go over to Claude Tankersley. Claude is an administrator. He's the administrator of Public Works. He has his hands in many cutting edge initiatives for the city. And I'll turn it over to Claude to talk through some of those and how it relates to the Trop site. Claude?
Thanks, Alan. I want to give everybody who's listening the good news that in terms of our utilities, that would be the water and stormwater, wastewater, those utilities, we've got plenty of capacity for the Trop site. One of the advantages that has been discussed already is the fact that we have a grid network. Not only do we have a grid network when it comes to streets, but we have a grid network when it comes to utilities. And that makes it possible for us to provide good capacity for whatever is planned at the Trop site. So the focus of Public Works then is going to be more on resiliency and sustainability. And later on in this presentation, Sharon Wright's going to talk to you about our integrated sustainability action plan. And we follow that plan when it comes to our utilities and when it comes to Public Works. And so we are definitely looking for things such as resource conservation through innovation. And I point out innovation as being important because we are so close to the Innovation District. And we're looking at resource conservation as well as how do we deal with climate change so we can reduce runoff and perhaps reuse stormwater. And so these are the kind of innovative things that we'll be looking to work with the developer of the Trop site moving forward. We've also completed a 20-year water resources master plan. This is an integrated master plan that looks at all of our water resources, from water to sewer, to stormwater, to reclaimed water, to even recreational waters. And it's a 20-year plan that'll move us forward, not only in maintaining the utilities and the infrastructure that we have, but also positioning ourselves for the sustainable and resilient utilities that we're going to need for the future. So pretty simple presentation for Public Works because we're bringing you good news, and I look forward to hearing any questions that we may have at the end of this presentation. Alan, back to you.
Claude, thank you as always, making something very complicated very simple. Thank you very much, Claude. Amazing. Let me turn it over to Carlos. Carlos, if you could talk about the environmental conditions of the site and any special areas that we have to pay attention to.
I'll do that, Alan. Thank you. Brian, if I may have the first slide, please. So on this side, it's an aerial photograph of the Tropicana Field site, and you'll see three areas highlighted on there: the former gas plant site, the Suncoast Dome, and the Jerry Beans car care site. And we'll talk about those three areas in a minute here, but I do want to focus you on in the center of the property there, that is Booker Creek. You heard before me that speakers talk about how important it is to our city. It is a major environmental asset to the city, and it is very important to this site. And It originates northwest of this property, flows to the southeast through the site, and then down again to the southeast through city parks and neighborhoods, eventually out to Tampa Bay. The location of this creek provides it an excellent opportunity to be a major focal point for your development, and just the plenty of opportunities to increase its ecosystem. The water quality of the creek itself is not bad for an urban system or for an urban stream, but in improving the ecology of the site and ecosystems and hydrology of the stream, you also improve the water quality of this the creek itself. And then, of course, water quality is important to the city of St. Petersburg. So let me move away from Booker Creek and talk about these 3 sites. Brian, if I may have the next slide. We're going to talk about the gas plant site. The gas plant site was the location of the gas plant that operated between 1914 and 1962. During the construction of the Tropicana Field, the crosshatch area here, there was contaminated soils that were excavated in this area. In 1980, then the city monitored the site for quite some time. And then in 2010, we worked with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection and excavated the last crosshatched area of soils, contaminated soils there. In doing so, there is some remaining groundwater contamination on site, but the Florida Department of Environmental Protection released the site with some restricted covenant applied to it. Next slide, please. This is just the legal description and drawing of that restricted area. It's about 5.2 acres in size. Next slide, please. And that restricted area is overlaying onto the existing aerial photograph out there. Those engineering controls, as part of the restricted covenant that DEP wants to have remain in place until further development, are the 3. The paved parking lot is EC1, or Engineering Control 1. Engineering Control 2 is the lined stormwater pond. And then engineering control number 3 is the seawall that goes along Booker Creek. No groundwater wells in that area to pump out groundwater, but DEP does not restrict the development of this site. They just require coordination for any of the proposed work in the area. There may be some, some things that may be done with their approval, such as treating groundwater and such, but they don't restrict what needs to be done. You just coordinate with them. Next slide, please. We'll talk about the other 2 sites, the former Jerry Bean Car Care site. It does have some limited soil contamination, and then the Suncoast Dome site we call has some minimal, I say no groundwater contamination. It's no groundwater contamination above groundwater standards, and then it has this undefined extent of the benzoapyrene, and we'll talk about that. Next slide, please. The Jerry Bean Car Care site did have fuel tanks at one time, as well as the dispensers, a waste oil tank. All that's been removed. The Florida Department of Environmental Protection did an assessment on the site a couple years ago, over the last couple years, and they found up in the top part there just some naphthalene, some petroleum, minor petroleum contamination on site. Again, no groundwater contamination, just soil. And then the other areas of contamination there is dieldrin, which is a pesticide that was typically used back in those days for termite controls and applied to the ground. Next slide, please. On this slide, we see on the right-hand side where it just shows this area we're going to talk about at the foot of the Suncoast Dome, and then going down to the lower left-hand corner. The DEP also did an assessment on this site as part of their program and found that, again, there's no groundwater contamination above standards, just some very slight contamination. They did find some soil contamination still exists, and these were of total recoverable petroleum hydrocarbons at soil boring 7 and 7R, kind of the center of that area. And again, this benzoapyrene, was not fully defined. We worked with the DEP on our gas plant site, and the DEP just kind of determined under this asphalt areas that we have here and the city urban soils that these BAP levels are consistent with soil found in urban areas, and it was not needed to be addressed on the other side of the creek. So last slide, please. And there's a lot more detailed information. The Florida Department of Environmental Protection has a great website that contains all this information. You can access it either through their map system, the Map Direct, or through their Oculus program. And a lot of detailed information there, but of course you can always ask the city if they have any additional information, or ask the city for additional information as well too. So that is the end of my presentation, Alan.
Carlos, thank you. Carlos, you've been dealing with these issues for a long time. Just to kind of sum it up, these are all manageable issues from your perspective, correct?
Yes, sir. Very, very manageable. Yes, sir.
Great. It's just working with the state and you to make sure that there's a plan in place.
That's correct, particularly with the gas plant site. The state just requires coordination. The other two are very small extent and just some soil activation at best in those areas.
Great, great. Thanks, Carlos. All right, we'll turn it over to Rob Gertis, who is also an administrator for the city, oversees neighborhoods and housing, and has worked with the mayor to put a housing plan in place. But Rob, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Delisle. Good morning to everybody who's on the call. I really appreciate your interest in St. Petersburg and the RFP. I'm going to speak a little bit about housing affordability, both generally and as it relates specifically to the RFP. And if we could have the next slide, Brian. So when it comes to housing affordability, housing is considered affordable if the household is paying less than 30% of their gross income on housing. If they're paying more than 30% of their gross income, they're considered cost burdened. You can see the latest data that we have here. 38% of the households in the city of St. Petersburg are considered cost burden. This is, although it's very competitive with other communities of our size and it's very common throughout the nation, it is a concern for both our mayor and our city council. If we could go to the next slide, Brian. So although the city of St. Petersburg has had housing affordability programs for at least 30 years, the mayor decided that we really wanted to redouble our efforts on this issue. It really is an equity issue throughout the city, trying to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to live here in an affordable manner. So the mayor unveiled a 10-year plan that started at the beginning of this year, which would be a 75% increase in productivity over the previous 10 years, and then established a set of goals that we're targeting. You can see some key elements at the bottom, both workforce and affordable rental units, workforce affordable ownership units, which will be a big part, I think, of the responses that we receive. Next slide, Brian. So these are just two bullet points from the 10-year plan. The plan is on the website, all the goals, if anybody is interested in going and taking a look at all the goals that we set. But related to the RFP, here's two big points to make. One is that we're going to try and create and preserve 2,400 multifamily units over the next 10 years. That would be basically double what we were able to do over the previous 10 years. And one way that we're going to try and achieve that is through city-owned land. Although there are many different properties throughout the city that the city owns that are in play related to housing affordability, obviously the Tropicana Field site is a major one. Next slide, Brian. Just a couple of incentives I wanted to mention for planning purposes as you're working through your responses. And you can certainly get more detail on these either through us, transportation, or planning and development services, who's been a great partner on housing affordability. But we have instituted multifamily parking reductions for affordable housing, which can save quite a bit of money, especially on structured parking. We've worked with the county to reduce the multimodal impact fee, both for small units and affordable units. There is an expedited permit review process, 10-day turnaround time on initial permits for affordable housing. And there are also FAR bonuses downtown for including affordable housing in the development. Next slide, Brian. I know this is a little difficult to read, but I wanted to let you know where we get our rental requirements from as you're working through your proposals and looking what type of revenue can be generated from different units. We do use the state ship guidelines. And so you can take a look at this information. It breaks down max rent by area media income for the household and the number of bedrooms in the unit. Now, this is for rental units. I didn't include ownership units here, but if you want that information, you can just contact us and we can help you with price points if you're interested in affordable condominiums. Next slide, please, Brian. All right, just a couple of last points I wanted to make. I know in the RFP there's a lot of different aspects that the city is very interested in, and they're all very important. I just wanted to give you a little bit of feedback from my perspective on the issue of housing affordability and what we're really going to be looking for in the responses. We definitely like to see an inclusion of different units at different AMIs. 120%, 80%, and 60% and below. We'd like to see a good mix of different households within the development. We'd like to see the units in the same buildings as the market rate units. We would not really look favorably upon standalone affordable buildings at 60% AMI, something of that nature. We're really looking for it to be mixed income inside the development in the same buildings. We're looking for a significant number of units and a significant affordability period commitment on those units. And we are looking to use the land value as the subsidy. With the fact that the city owns the land, the nature of the land, the size of it, where it's located at, we really feel that it should not require other direct subsidies for the affordable unit, and that the land value can be used as the subsidy to complete what we're looking for. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Delisle. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about affordable housing today related to the RFP.
Rob, thank you for that clarity. And let me just mention to those that are listening that we are in the process of putting an appraisal together as we speak. We indicated that in the RFP. As soon as that appraisal is complete, we will post it for everybody. Rob has rightly indicated that we know that there are some policy goals that the city has that will have an impact on the value of the land in some case, shape, or form. It's 86 acres. So we will do our homework on that, and I'm sure you will as well. And we look forward to something that works for you and works for us. Okay, Rob, thank you again. Let me turn it over to Sharon Wright to talk about sustainability. You know, this is an extremely important issue to the mayor and deputy mayor. If you know Mayor Kreisman at all, you know that he's been way out front on these issues, and Sharon has made that happen. Sharon?
Good morning, thank you. I'm honored to be speaking to you as the city's first fully dedicated director in the Office of Sustainability and Resiliency. The office was established in August of 2015 by Mayor Kreisman. Next slide, please. Most of what I'm going to speak about is included in and around our integrated sustainability action plan. Other relevant roles I've served to this project are as the transferability lead in the Harvard cross-boundary collaboration. We also led a team on using the Tropicana Field redevelopment as a well communities pilot. We wanted to think ahead about ways to not just make this healthy, but even restorative, not just to the natural environment, but to our occupants, our visitors, and our communities. And then taking some of the integrated sustainability action plan principles and applying them with a group looking at the ideas around ideas that we can include and implement around smart cities, healthy communities, and sustainable and resilient infrastructure. Next slide, please. What is the integrated sustainability action plan? We'd never really had a plan of any kind like this. So we included 3 key pieces: the climate action piece, which is our first ever greenhouse gas inventory community-wide and how to reduce those greenhouse gas emissions. Our sustainability action piece, which is interconnected and interdependent framework across all elements of sustainability that we'll talk about in just a second. And then that resiliency piece, a realizing resilience framework, is also a third large piece of the integrated sustainability action plan. Next slide, please. We do have in there our definition of a sustainable city and a resilient city. You should take a look at that. Here we don't like to talk about bouncing back as a resilient city. We like to talk about thriving during changing conditions, because that will be the continuous condition, I think, of our world for the times to come. Next slide, please. That large interdependent framework, we used STAR communities as our baseline in 2016. This was not even my idea coming in. The community already had embraced this framework and really liked it. Over 500 metrics are included. We looked at our baseline in 2016. As you can see, it's not just that climate and energy piece in a goal area. These things are all interdependent: our equity and empowerment, our workforce readiness, many things that kind of depend on each other for overall community sustainability. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, the community really embraced that framework, and we used it as our engagement. We did extensive community and business engagement for the ISAP. And we realized kind of early on that even though we loved this framework, using it as a tool for engagement was kind of getting a little confusing, and we noticed these common themes that were always coming up no matter what type of engagement we were doing, whether it's with executives at our largest employers or our neighborhood level activists. And so we kind of created these buckets early in the engagement process, and did our engagement around these buckets, and saw it as our job as the technical folks to take that input and then put it back into the data-driven metrics of the larger STAR Communities framework. Next slide, please. And something interesting, while this was going on, the Grow Smarter strategy that has been talked about was also doing some updates and revamping. And I noticed in one of their presentations, they had some common themes. And as you can see, they look very similar to what we were finding. So this is just to point out that our community was very clearly telling us what was important to them at this time and continuing on. Next slide, please. We take the ISAP and our sustainability across the board and community-wide very seriously. And what this demonstrates is that from that 2016 baseline, as we just got started, to our recertification in 2019, we overall improved in every goal area, and we'd like to continue to do so and be a lead city. Not just LEED, as you see there. Doing this also enabled us to be a lead city, but we want to be an LEAD city as well. Next slide, please. Also included in the Integrated Sustainability Action Plan is our Clean Energy Roadmap. We were the, next slide, please. We were the first city to commit to 100% clean energy in Florida. And in the ISAP, there is a Clean Energy Roadmap that shows at least 5 pathways to get there, to get to an 80% reduction in emissions by 2050 and to get to 100% clean energy transition and hopefully a just transition by 2035. Doing all of this work within just a couple of years, from 2015 to 2019 or late 2015, enabled us to apply and be recognized and win an award through the Bloomberg American Cities Climate Challenge. Next slide, please. So we're very proud to be in the company of 25 cities that are really seen as leaders from all sizes, including Austin, Seattle, and Charlotte are just a few of those other cities. Next slide, please. And then that third piece, we talked about resiliency. This was something we also did very early on. We had on-site help from experts in New Orleans, Boston, and Miami to help us look at our cities realizing resilience framework. So I encourage you to do that because Tropicana Field really offers a lot of opportunity to contribute to the resiliency of this city. Next slide, please. I mentioned being the transferability lead as part of the Bloomberg Harvard cross-boundary collaboration that has been mentioned. Next slide, please. As the transferability lead, that just means that I'm taking the concepts that we learned with our community leaders into other city efforts, as well as the ongoing efforts of the Tropicana Field redevelopment. I know more of this information will be shared with you, and I'm a little short on time here, but just do note that we want this to be an inclusive and equitable process, and we propose to do that in all aspects of the redevelopment of Tropicana Field. Next slide, please. Not only as a sustainability director, but as a realist, we also identified and know that we have concerns and there could be barriers to the success of this restorative piece of Tropicana Field. And we recognize that this will be iterative and continuous efforts. It doesn't just finish at design or RFP, but it will be ongoing throughout to be a successful collaboration and inclusive development. And I thank you for your time.
Sharon, thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. Let me turn it over now to Mike Jeffries, who is our Administrator of Parks and Recreation. Mike?
Good morning, Alan. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time this morning. As I walk through what a master developer would need to know about St. Pete from a park standpoint, there's really 3 things that come to mind. The first is that St. Petersburg is very serious about our parks. Next slide, please, Brian. Our parks are part of our DNA. I think you've heard most of our stakeholders, most of our partners talk about our waterfront park system. Our waterfront park system is actually the 3rd largest in North America. When our forefathers were designing our park system, they were very concerned about protecting the integrity of the land and making sure that we had access for everyone. Next slide. All right. Second thing I want the master developer to be aware of is that we already have a lot to be proud of. The first thing that comes to mind, our park system is nationally accredited, which is a very unique award, quite honestly. There's under 100 communities in the country who are nationally accredited. This is a process where we are audited, we're judged by our peers, basically to prove that we follow best practices, that we are inclusive, that we are accessible, that we meet all of the benchmarks. It's one thing for me to sit here on a Zoom call and tell you how great our parks are, or to even hear some of our other stakeholders tell you how great our parks are. It's another thing to have professionals come in and audit and really confirm that that quality is there. And we've received that for the last 15 years. Some of the other things on the list here, we were ranked number 19 by the Trust for Public Land in the Park Score Index. And that is out of 100 of the largest cities in the country. We are a city that has many amenities. We really have something for everyone. We are extremely walkable. According to TPL, 75% of St. Petersburg residents live within a 10-minute walk of a park. Again, the national average is only 55. So we really are sincere and we're passionate about connecting our residents to our parkland. One of the other interesting awards that I thought I'd point out to the potential developers, our city is crazy about our dogs. We are ranked number 8 as far as a dog-friendly city in America. You'll find that in all of our open cafes. You'll find that in our parks. You'll find that with our dog parks. We want to make sure, again, that we have something for everyone. Next slide, please. All right, again, with the rest of the presentation that I have given you a flavor for what the department offers, what our different stakeholders might be. We have stakeholders of all ages, of all demographics, and that really ties me back to the third thing that I want all of our potential master developers to remember and to keep in mind. Here in St. Petersburg, we believe with all of our heart that our parks are our great equalizers. We heard from our mayor, we heard from our deputy mayor, we've heard from many that this is a community, this is a city where the sun shines on all of us, and all of us have an opportunity. And our parks are, quite honestly, our front yard. They're a community gathering spot. We have over 150 special events. We have events that are as large as 10,000 in our Vinoy Park. We have major concerts. We really are known as a premier venue in our park system for different events. We have many national events that are here in town. Our goal and our hope is that the master developer would look for opportunities to tie into the existing park infrastructure that we have here in St. Pete. Again, when I say the great equalizer, a lot of cities look at their parks as an economic engine. They look at it as, you know, a place for place setting. We really believe that our parks are available, accessible, and need to be utilized by all of our citizens, regardless of age, regardless of demographic, socioeconomic demographic. We really believe that our parks are what make St. Petersburg unique. I've got my next slide, please. All right, here's a listing of some of the offerings that the department offers. Next slide. And I will, in an effort to cut time, I will leave you with this infographic. This really gives you a snapshot of what the department offers for the entire community. Again, happy to answer any questions that you might have, or happy to have any offline conversations as well. Look forward to working with whoever's selected to be the master developer of the Trop site. Thank you.
Mike, thank you very much. And, you know, clearly for the mayor, for the administration, for you, and for the council, parks, greenways, as part of this redevelopment of the Trop site is extremely important. And I just wanted to point out that in the RFP, we did put in a special session of council where they did talk about the importance of parkland.
Absolutely. We are very, again, very serious about our parks. Our mayor is a huge advocate, and so is our council. So our elected officials are all on board. So we appreciate the opportunity to sit at the table. Thank you, Alan.
Great. Thanks, Michael. Okay, let me turn it over to Liz Abernathy, who is our Director of Planning and Development Services, and she can address zoning and permitting, some of the nuts and bolts. Liz?
Liz, you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Alan. Can we go to the next slide, please? So I have the honor of leading 3 teams as the Director of Planning and Development Services Department. All of our teams will be assisting in redevelopment of Tropicana Field, starting with our urban planning and historic preservation team, who will be working on any development agreements. In addition to, there is an archaeological component that we are currently researching. There is a former cemetery on the west side, west of 16th Street, and we are engaging a consultant to do 3D laser scanning to verify that there are no remaining buried objects in that area. For those that are in the Tampa Bay area, you may have been following some of the experiences other jurisdictions have been having with former cemeteries. So we are taking extra precaution to do some research and make sure that we can deal with any concerns if there's any remaining objects there. Our Development Review Services Division, also commonly known as zoning, will be working with the master developer on site zoning and design standards. And our Construction Services and Permitting will be handling our plan review, permitting, and inspections for any future buildings and development. Next slide, please. Current zoning is very broad, and we don't see the need to make any changes for master plans that have been envisioned for the project. There are 2 downtown districts that do allow a broad range of uses, including office, hotel, commercial, and residential uses. Next slide, please. We have unlimited height restrictions in our downtown, and the review process does change as buildings go higher in height. For example, the east half of the site, any buildings over 208 feet AMSL above mean sea level will require an FAA review. And as buildings go above 300 feet in height, there is a public notice requirement, and over 375 feet, there is a public hearing requirement. Next slide, please. We have a very generous floor area ratio, FAR allowance in our downtown. There is a base approval of 3.0 and up to a 7.0 through a public hearing process. That would equate to over 16 million square feet. So very, pretty much unlimited development potential here under our FAR regulations. Next slide, please. Many square footages, depending on the use, aren't even counted towards the maximum square footage allowed. And so there are exemptions. Next slide, please. And then we have a bonus structure over a certain amount of base FAR. There are bonuses required to go to a higher intensity level. Next slide, please. And everywhere in our downtown, we do have design standards requiring consistent architectural style, buildings built to the sidewalk to help promote that pedestrian environment. Certain active ground floor uses are required on certain streets, and requirements for glazing and fenestration. And we do have a public art requirement in our downtown as well. Next slide, please. So I've gone through this pretty quickly, and our team is always available for any detailed questions people might have about our regulations. Our managers and are available to you at any time via email or via call, and you can contact me if you have any questions. So thank you, Alan, for giving me a few minutes to talk about